we're not dealing with a ghetto scholar. That's what we're here for, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We're here to end ghetto scholarship. You see? So his subject is the origin of Islam and the end of ghetto scholarship.
Yes, sir.
Refuting the claims of Walter Williams.
That's right.
And Alim Bey. What is ghetto scholarship? I'm certain he'll go into that. Unlearned, unrefined exegesis of information. That would be my definition. Without further delay, without further ado, let's bring our brother up with a warm round of applause. Dr. Wesley Muhammad, Brother True Islam.
In the name of Allah, who came in the person of Master Farah Muhammad, to whom all holy praises are forever due, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah. I bear witness that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is his living and exalted Christ. I further bear witness that the Honorable Brother Minister Louis Farrakhan is their divine reminder in our midst. In their names, I greet you, family. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, sir.
Brother Self-Justice, thank you. Brother Michael, thank you for your words and your hospitality here in Trenton. It is later than we had intended to get started. So we will get right into our subject. Late last year, after reading The Historical Origin of Islam by Walter Williams, our elder brother out of Chicago, I sent our brother a letter indicating to our brother that I appreciated his willingness to put himself out there, as all of our teachers engaged in a public discourse, put themselves out there, open ourselves up for criticism, academic, as well as personal. And so I indicated to Brother Walter that I was appreciative of his years of attempting to re-educate miseducated black folk, and that in this particular book, The Historical Origin of Islam, there are a couple points that are in the book and influential in the community as a result, that as an academic myself, I take issue with. And so I invited our dear brother to a public discussion of the thesis of his book and the merits upon which the thesis is predicated or built. Brother Walter called me and agreed to a public discussion, agreed that I would organize it in Chicago, and I did so. And Brother Walter and I stayed in communication, and after a date was set for the discussion, Brother Walter and I spoke again, and Brother Walter said he will have to renege. I said, well, why is that? I asked, brother. He said that he looked at his schedule and come to find out he has obligations, lectures, and whatnot. Well, my response was, if the date that we agreed is not agreeable to your calendar, I am quite flexible. Whenever your calendar can accommodate a discussion, my calendar can accommodate a discussion. But apparently there is no time on brother's future calendar that can accommodate a discussion. So brother said, no, there will not be a debate. After canceling the planned discussion, I posted a blog on my MySpace page explaining the situation. There was great excitement around the possibility that Brother Walter and I could academically, respectfully discuss the merits of his book. That's what academics do. And so after he discovered his schedule could not accommodate such a discussion, I posted the blog and describing the correspondence and indicating to my readers it will not take place. And I suggested then that this is ghetto scholarship. I will get further into what I mean, but in that particular blog, I suggested that Brother Walter and others can make public claims, but are unwilling to have those claims publicly interrogated and hide behind scheduling conflict. And so that blog was posted. That blog was posted on someone else's website. I did not post it. On this website, Brother Walter happened to be, as well as Brother Ray Hagan. And upon reading my blog, Brother Ray Hagan took offense to my characterization of Brother Walter's work as ghetto scholarship. Brother Ray posted a letter, if I may say, a very emotional letter of anger, disapproval of my characterization of his colleague's work. And a brother in Baltimore who works with Brother Walter, Brother Ray, and Brother Phil Valentine learned of the situation, read my blog, and decided, well, he will reach out to Walter to see if he can talk Walter into, convince Walter the value of such a discussion. He reached out to Ray Hagan to see if Ray Hagan, because what is at issue is a particular claim that these individuals, as well as Brother Alim Bey, makes, that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, never lived. He's a fictitious character. And that Islam is either created by the Roman Catholic Church, a la Phil Valentine, and a modified version, Brother Alim Bey, or was created by 19th century Jews, a la Brother Walter and Ray in a modified version. So these individuals are the articulators of this particular revisionist history of Islam, which is what I was challenging Brother Walter on. And so since they are a part of a similar intellectual circle, the brother in Baltimore decided, well, he'll go down the line and see which one would be willing to have this discussion, since all of them make the claim. Brother Ray said he would not participate in the discussion. Brother Phil Valentine Brother Phil Valentine said a lot of stuff. I will get to some of that in a second. But he said he would not participate in such a discussion. Brother Ray was offended by my use of the language ghetto scholarship. And many of their supporters have taken offense to my use of this terminology, which I can perfectly understand. What do I mean, ghetto scholarship? What I don't mean is scholarship done by individuals without degrees. I know many PhDs who produce poor scholarship.
That's right.
I know many non-learned individuals who produce good scholarship.
That's right.
Scholarship has nothing to do with a degree. If I may, I will read to you exactly what I said about ghetto scholarship in the blog. I said, TGI, Truth of God Institute, which Brother Chef J explained or introduced to you. TGI intends to expose and affect the demise of the low-quality ghetto scholarship that is currently popular in the intellectual circles of the black community. This scholarship is represented by such persons as the above-mentioned Walter Williams, Bobby Hemmett, Phil Valentine, etc. This intellectualism, based on profoundly poor scholarship and much imagination, is a tragic hijacking of the legacy of our great black scholars. Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Leonard Jeffries, and others. I said a parade example of this poor scholarship is Walter Williams' book, Historical Origin of Islam. I must further qualify what I mean by ghetto scholarship, whose demise I see. I do not mean black scholarship. Even though I am critical of aspects of their scholarship, I have great respect for Sheikh Anta Diop, Dr. Clark, Dr. Ben, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Dr. Charles Finch, Wade Nobles, and the rest of our great black scholars of the past generation. Even though I feel some of their scholarship had inherent shortcomings, which this generation must correct and move beyond, I also feel that they did their best with what they had to work with. and they did a good job. Most importantly, they sincerely tried to live up to the high standards of scholarship recognized by the Academy. The ghetto scholars and their ghetto scholarship is much different, is what I wrote in the blog that so offended brothers. The Honorable Brother Minister Louis Farrakhan once spoke of intellectual pigs and intellectual cows. The pig is monogastric. It has one stomach. It must eat the more easily digestible foods, grain. Cattle, on the other hand, are polygastric. They have one stomach but with 4 compartments. Compartments that provide for better discrimination of the intake, absorption of nutrients, and allows for the consumption of hay and pasture, which is more difficult to digest than grain, but more beneficial. Intellectual pigs are those that consume everything. It's not that they don't read. They read a lot, as pigs eat a lot. But they are not discriminating in what they can absorb of what they read. They don't interrogate their sources. If it's in a book, it's quotable. If it's in the book, it's absorbable into my intellectual system. There's no discrimination of good sources versus bad sources. There's no asking of the question, who is this author that is making this claim, and on what is this author's claim based? If it's in the book, it's absorbable. And because there is no real development of critical interrogative skills, it's an easy material that is referred to, that is absorbed. Because that difficult stuff, the difficult literature that requires skill sets other than the ability to read a book, to be able to extract value from, those materials are not considered, are not absorbed, and made a part of the intellectual system. Allow me to give you an example. Brother Bobby Hemmett, I pray I can still call him my brother. We were in Atlanta together, and if anyone is fortunate enough to see brother in the near future, you can ask him about Brother Wise. He will know of whom you speak. We had good intellectual exchanges in Atlanta. And there's one particular occasion that I believe is very illustrative of what the type of scholarship I am referring, of which I'm referring. I'm on campus. I was a Morehouse student at the time. I'm on campus, and Brother Bobby excitedly sees me and runs over to me. Wise. That was my first name when I came to the 5% Nation. Wise. So Wise. Tell brother's very excited about something. He said he had just read a book on the lost Ark of the Covenant. And this particular book suggested that the Ark was located and discovered in Ethiopia. Wow. Interesting. Brother Bobby proceeds to tell me in his excitement how now, having come across this book, he is going to start lecturing on the lost art. And I said, I honestly don't remember whether I said it to myself or I said it out loud. This brother reads a single book on a subject for which he had no prior involvement. And on the basis of this single read, brother's going to start lecturing on the subject. Well, who is the author making this claim? On what basis are you confident that the claim has merits? Have you analyzed the author's sources? Have you engaged the literature, the critical literature on the subject of the Ark of the Covenant in ancient Judaism? None of that was done. But in the excitement of a new find, a new read, we began lecturing and we become scholars on the subject. That is irresponsible scholarship. See, ghetto scholarship is not about degrees, it's about methodology. Good scholarship and bad scholarship is about good methodology and bad methodology. Now, Brother Phil Valentine was approached by the brother in Baltimore. Is Brother Shaheed here? Did Brother Shaheed make it? Brother Shaheed. Assalamu alaikum, brother. This is the brother who generated the discussion in Baltimore. And Brother Phil was approached and offered to publicly discuss the subject with me. He declined. And then brother posted an angry letter. I would like to read some of the letter as a context, as a backdrop for my presentation. Brother Phil says, the Islamicized Negrophiles, I assume I am one of those. The Islamicized Negrophiles have now emerged using faith-based scholarship to re-promote the who do you believe, me or your lionized, feel good, don't bust the religious bubble that has helped me redefine my blackness BS. As I said to the good brothers of Baltimore who called yesterday to offer me this man's challenge to debate, that man being yours truly. Well, let me be clear, I never personally challenged Phil. The brothers in Baltimore, after the fallout with Walter Williams, wanted that discussion to take place, that issue to be discussed publicly, academically, and since Brother Phil was one of those making such claims, he was approached to participate. Am I correct, Brother Shaheed?
That's correct.
As I said to the good brothers of Baltimore who called yesterday to offer me this man's challenge to debate the history of Islam, I had to go through the same, I'm insulted and indignant at what you said about Christianity, and I want to debate you on historical merits nonsense by Christianized Negrophiles, who at the time I chose to indulge the Christianized Negrophiles. What I encountered each time was the same faith-based logic undergirding their historical scholarship. I came to the conclusion that those steeped in the faith of and belief in their God and their religion will unconsciously defend their own deeply embedded, chronically indoctrinated mindsets by twisting whatever scholarship that they find to fit the belief that their prophet and this teaching and his teachings were somehow the truthful centerpieces of untempered history. Oh, those are serious charges. And even though it's common knowledge that I love a good intellectual rumble, Brother Phil has challenged Islamicized Negrophiles in the past to debate. As it stands right now, however, he says, we're out of time. So I just let my teachings do the talking. We're out of time. Brother Phil does not believe in the apocalypticism of the Bible or the Quran, so he doesn't fear an impending doom. Why are we out of time? What is going to befall us? I mean, if he was a Bible believer, if he was a Muslim or Christian, I could understand. He will probably, or even if he was an FOI, he may think, well, you know, the wheel is coming soon, it's imminent. Because some apocalyptic catastrophe makes it more important to, you know, help people avert the bombs from the baby plane. Or the Mahdi, or the Christ with a sword, but he doesn't accept any of that. So absent any apocalyptic catastrophe, why is there no time to engage the Islamicized Negrophiles the way the Christianized Negrophiles were indulged? And just recently, Brother Phil, I saw him on video, YouTube, and he says, I have been bringing it to Christians for 10 to 20 years. Now Islam is on the block. Okay. So then it's timely to have this discussion.
That's right.
If Islam is on the block, now you finish with Christianity, Islam is on the block. Let's have the discussion.
That's right.
There's a reason this discussion won't happen. See, let me be clear. I'm with Brother Phil. I'm with Brother Walter. I'm with Bill Mark. And they're beating the hell out of the religious dogmatists.
That's right.
In our community. I agree that dogmatism from Christians, dogmatism from Muslims, dogmatism from FOI and MGT is intellectually stifling.
Go ahead. That's right.
It ill serves us, especially in this day and time, because I am apocalyptic. I do believe that we are at a lull before a storm. But that's not my subject. I do believe that it ill serves us to be fools for Christ any longer. To be fools for Muhammad any longer. To be fools for Elijah Muhammad any longer. Neither of these men called us to be fools for them. So, inasmuch as it does intellectually stifle our community, it is an appropriate crusade to knock the religious dogmatism out of our minds. And I am with Brother Walter, Brother Phil, in his wanting to put Islam on the block. But see, I submit to Brother Phil, he can't bring it to Muslims the way I can. Because Brother Phil wants to invite Muslims to replace one fictitious history for another fictitious history. Brother Phil says Islam was created by the Roman Catholic Church. Now, let me go back. Brother Phil says he came to the conclusion that these who are steeped in faith of and belief in their God and their religion will unconsciously defend their own deeply embedded, chronically indoctrinated mindsets by twisting whatever scholarship they find fit to believe. He says that us Islamicized Negrophiles will use faith-based scholarship. Use faith-based scholarship, which we will twist in order to re-promote the who do you believe, me or your lying eyes? Feel good, don't bust the religious bubble that has helped me redefine my blackness. Rarely will Muslims, especially traditional Muslims, feel good about my teaching of Islam. Not as, I'm not a minister, I'm a historian of religion. I'm an academic. Let me get that out there. I am not a minister. The tools of my trade are not rhetoric and wit. I am not interested in appealing, pushing any emotional buttons in you. For better or for worse, I'm an academic. The tools of my trade, data, empirical data, critically analyzed. Now, brother says, I will use faith-based scholarship that I will twist to promote my what do you believe, who do you believe, me or your lying eyes? Feel good, don't bust the religious bubble that has helped me define my blackness. BS. Faith-based scholarship, which is twisted, is what I am accused of. And presumably by inverse, Brother Phil represents the opposite. Non-faith-based scholarship. Untwisted, non-faith-based scholarship, which we should defer to. Brother Phil says Islam was created by the Roman Catholic Church. Did everybody receive a bibliography?
Yes, sir.
Brother Phil says Islam was created by the Roman Catholic Church. Brother Alim makes a similar modified claim. The problem, I suggest, is you in the audience and me. We let people come before us and say stuff. And we don't when there's question and answer, we don't jump up and say, brother, I appreciate what you said. I'm not familiar with that. Where did you get that from? We don't do that. Our teacher can come before us, and if it sounds exotic enough, because we like the exotic, nah. Exotic for the sake of exotic. So if it sounds exotic enough, we get in. And we won't ask, brother, where did you get that from? A simple question. That simple question will part the waters. So if someone was to stand up and ask, Brother Phil, I'm feeling what you said about Islam. I always suspected Islam was created by the Roman Catholic Church, but I never came across any documentation. Can you please share with me your documentation of that particular claim? See, that question was posed to Walter Williams last week, and I'm going to get to his response, which is typical. See, Brother Walter, when asked such a question, will have two options. He would either tell the truth of the source of that claim, or he will just not answer, because he knows the merits of the source of that claim. Anybody know what this is? It's a comic book. It's a comic book. It's a comic book published by Jack Chick. Jack Chick is an evangelical who started a publishing house in the 70s called Chick Publishing, whose objective was to spread the gospel through comics. In the 70s, Jack Chick connected with Dr. Alberto Rivera, who died in '97. Rivera, the details of his person are very scanty. Alberto claimed to have been a former Jesuit priest, Catholic. Alberto claimed that as a Jesuit priest, he was a participant in a clandestine Vatican meeting, a secret meeting in the Vatican, during which one of the bishops revealed the untold story of the origin of Islam. During this secret smoke-filled meeting, it was revealed that in fact, because Roman Catholicism in the 6th century was on a decline, the Roman Catholics got wise and decided that they can better promote their agenda of world domination by creating a heretical religion. And that religion was Islam. Secret Roman Catholic agents were sent to Arabia who conscripted Prophet Muhammad into the conspiracy, and Islam was born. Now, Riviera, what we do know, we don't know if he was ever a Jesuit priest. What we do know is he was a Protestant who is very interested in advancing Protestantism against Catholicism. So Alberto's overall agenda was polemicizing against Catholicism on behalf of Protestantism. And Jack Chick, a Protestant fundamentalist, the two met and they were soulmates, so it seemed. Both Protestants with an agenda, an anti-Catholic agenda. Jack Chick put the claims of Alberto based on that secret Vatican meeting that nobody can confirm. No details were offered allowing researchers to follow any footsteps. All we have is Alberto Rivera saying he participated, he was called to a smoke-filled back room in the Vatican, and the secret history of Islam was divulged. And he got so offended, he left Catholicism and became a Protestant. And he and Jack Chick collaborated to produce a series of comic books. And in this particular comic, The Prophet is where Alberto's claims on Islam are made. They were first published in a comic book. So the basis of Brother Field's claim, faith, let's go back to what he suggests I am doing. Faith-based scholarship. This is a fundamentalist Protestant comic book. A fundamentalist Protestant comic book that is the basis of his claim that Islam was created by the Roman Catholic Church. So you see, if you were to stop and ask Brother Phil, I like that, brother. Where can I go to get the documentation so I can beat the hell out of the Muslims with that truth that you just revealed? I got it from Jack Chick's comic book. The end of ghetto scholarship. I don't care about his degree or lack of degree. It is not my degree that I am putting on the table. It's methodology. And see, you will be the judge whose claims are based on faith-based scholarship twisted and whose claims are based on empirical data.
Come on.
Critically examined. So, Brother Phil wants Islam to be on the block. And I support that. Because in that regard, I must say this. Muslims, we are complicit in this. We are complicit in the reign of this poor scholarship because we have gone dogmatic. There was a time where Muslims were the intellectual lights of the community.
That's right.
That day is gone. We are very Christianized. We have become Islamicized Negrophiles. Yes, we have. And in the absence of our intellectual light, there's a vacuum. And it's easy to fill the vacuum because we as a people have become so gullible. There used to be a time where nothing a black scholar would say what we accept. We want to know what white person agreed with. So we used to say, where you get that from? And what we were really saying is what white folk agree with you. We're not even there anymore.
Right.
We don't ask at all. If it sounds exotic enough, we like it. We cleave to it. Brother Alim Bey, I want to make this point. I added Brother Alim's name to my presentation after viewing his video, Islam Decoded. I won't spend too much time on Brother Alim today, because brother has his hands full next month. I don't he and brother Sarah Sutton Seti are to have a debate next month. I'm not really clear on what it is they will be debating, but I want to make this very clear. My disagreement with Brother Alim is strictly academic. It is not personal. I am not a part of Brother Sarraza, anybody else's crusade against the Moors. I honor Prophet Noble Drew Ali.
That's right.
Yes, there are individual Moors who make individual claims with which I disagree. There are FOI that make claims with which I disagree.
That's right.
I think the intellectual discourse, the intellectual engagement, black folk need, but we need to learn the skill of agreeing to disagree without being disagreeable.
That's right.
And so the way this, even though the discussion next month in New York had the potential theoretically to be a very productive discourse, the way it is promoted, it disturbs me. See, brother, I don't know brother Sarah Sutton said. I'm not familiar with his work other than his YouTube videos. But the animus with which this thing is promoted, our intellectual space has been turned into a back alley.
That's right, God. That's right.
Where we gang bang. See, that's the parade example of ghetto scholarship. Now I know Brother Sarah will probably produce a YouTube video cussing me out. That's fine. I don't know his particular disagreements with Alim, but I know the way this thing is promoted, the hostility, the personal beef is counterproductive. And see, when I say ghetto scholarship, I'm talking about the hoodifying of black intellectuality. See, all the MF this, all the thug intellectualism, see, not, they claim that they're keeping it hood. But I submit to you, not everything about the hood should be kept. See, the intellectual circuit, knowledge is a hustle now. The lecture circuit has become the new corner. It's the new coin. And this is the ghettoization of scholarship. I don't deny that Brother Sarah has something good to say. I don't know, because it's difficult to get through the anger.
Yes, sir.
The gangsterism. To hear any scholarship.
Yes, sir.
And I'm saying that this is counterproductive.
That's right.
Everything can't be hoodified.
That's right.
Because if our scholarship is convincing to nobody in the world but us in the ghetto, what the hell good is it?
That's right.
And we are not going to get civilized society to respect our scholarship when we are hoodifying it.
That's right.
We're keeping our scholarship hood, where no one but the hood would accept what we say. And see, the point isn't that we teach black babies that they are the fathers and mothers of civilization. But we don't equip them to defend that argument when they leave the black community.
That's right.
So they go to these colleges and universities. And they're sitting in a history class. And the history professor don't know anything about Gerald Mason. Know anything about Albert Churchill. Because, you know, those are 19th century non-A-list sources. Right. Our babies know African history as Brother Phil, as Sarah, as Brother Ray offers it, which is easily deconstructed by critical scholarship. So we send our babies to these universities and they have no defense. And then they realize, or they think they've been lied to.
That's right.
Well, no. We are the mothers and fathers of civilization, but it's not enough to just feed that claim to our babies. Right. We have to give it to them in such a way that they can defend it. They can sustain it in the face of intellectual threats from the outside. If our scholarship is disrespected in the hood, then it's hood scholarship. It's ghetto scholarship. And this is the type of scholarship that is respected only by us because we have lost the critical ear and eye. We don't ask, where you get that from? So I put a bibliography together to preempt that. What I'm going to present today, check the sources. I put it before you. My gift to you, a bibliography. Now the specific claim, which I wanted, can you see this? Is this a problem?
What, the lighting?
The lighting, yes.
We can see it.
The specific claims by Brother Walter. There never has been a man of traditional Islam that ever walked the earth in human form by the name Muhammad called the Prophet. Brother Walter says. Rather, research evidence points to the use and distortion of the life of a real person who actually lived during a later time era to the created preacher, the traditional prophet of Islam. He's suggesting that there was no physical Muhammad. The orthodox or traditional biography of Muhammad actually is a biography of somebody else who lived years later. As he goes on, in the 13th century, the disciples of Ibn al-Arabi, the great Sufi sheikh, Ibn al-Arabi, alias Muhammad, that his disciples began to use his biography and life to create and fashion a new monist religion called Mohammedanism. Because first it was Mohammedanism and then Islam. These disciples of Ibn al-Arabi, the 13th century sheikh, used his life to fashion a new monist religion called Mohammedanism. Centuries later, the religion will be called Islam. Let's be clear. After the 13th century, or in the 13th century, disciples of Ibn al-Arabi took his history and created the biography of Muhammad. And the religion around which, this creation was the pivot of a new religion called Mohammedanism. Centuries later, Mohammedanism was finally called Islam. You follow?
Yes, sir.
He said, the change was consummated when the religion was officially named Islam during and after the formation and writing of the world's first Quran, based on the 5 books of Moses and the Psalms of the Old Testament and the 4 Gospels of the New Testament. The work began in 1870. There was no Quran before the work began in 1870. The work began in 1870 in Syria and finished 49 years later and accepted by the Mohammedan world in 1919 at Cairo, Egypt. It was at that point that they ceased calling the religion Mohammedanism. Armed with the new literature, the Quran, written and formulated by Jewish scholars and rabbis of the Jewish organization, the Alliance Israelite Universelle of Paris, France, a new religion called Islam was created. Ibn al-Arabi, the real Muhammad, whose life was conscripted in the creation of the history of Prophet Muhammad. Brother Walter says, Ibn al-Arabi is the real person whose biography and life were used to create the created creature, the Prophet Muhammad, for traditional Islam. The mythology created by Arabi is being used in present-day Islam and the Quran. Ibn al-Arabi's doctrine, because he taught it centuries before the first Quran was ever formulated, his doctrine, his myth, became a part of the Quran. It was Ibn al-Arabi who first created the ritual of going on Hajj, or pilgrimage to Mecca, an imaginary mental state. Since before the 13th century, there was no such thing as Hajj. No one ever made a pilgrimage to Mecca, because Ibn al-Arabi created the pilgrimage to Mecca. This is brother's claim. And this is what we shall examine this afternoon. You may have to leave before I get finished. That is fine. I want to get this on record. If you have to leave, quietly excuse yourself. I take no offense to it. I have a lot to say.
Take your time.
Is this ghetto scholarship? Brother Walter says, the Quran is an adaptation of the Jewish Sefer HaTorah, or Old Testament, in the 4 Gospels. He says the Pentateuch literature, the Pentateuch is literature that is derived from Sefer HaYashar literature. Sefer, he says, means books, Ha is of, and Yasha means the upright ones. Why do I charge Brother Walt with ghetto scholarship, poor scholarship, scholarship more imaginative than critical? Brother says, Sefer means books, Ha is of, and Yasha means the upright ones. See, this claim that the Quran is based on Sefer HaTorah is very important in Walter's book. This Sefer HaTorah is critical to so many points of his thesis. The centrality of Sefer HaYashar might suggest that he knew what he was talking about Yashar, Sefer HaYashar, at least on a basic fundamental level. But see, he reveals something in his attempt to translate Sefer HaYashar. See, he says Sefer means book. No problem. He says the Hay is of, and Yasha is upright. Hebrew, first year Hebrew. You learn a very simple, yet very important syntactical point. This construction, Sefer HaYashar, book of the upright ones, book of the upright ones, is a genitive construction. Literally, Sefer book, the Hay is not the preposition of. It's a definite article. Book of the upright ones. It's similar to the Arabic idafa. Kitab Asali. Kitab book, the Sali, upright ones. Where's the of? Well, first year biblical Hebrew teaches us that there is no of. The of is implied in the genitive construct. Hey never is a preposition. It's a definite article. The literal is book, the upright ones. But the genitive construction, the of is implied. This may seem trivial. It's fine point of Hebrew syntax. But the simpleness of this point emphasizes the profundity of the error. Because this is first year Hebrew. Now, it's all right if brother didn't know Hebrew. But if you know you don't know Hebrew, why pretend to parse this sentence? Why act like you do and get it wrong? See, that suggests a willingness to speak on what one knows not.
Go ahead, black man.
But that's just a light example. He can be forgiven for that, if that was it. For this, he cannot. He says the term God was used in a time, the term God was used in a time of Araby, and not the term Allah. as used in today's Islam. During the time of Arabi, and in his writings, the term Allah is absent. In the Fusus al-Hikam, the Bezels of Wisdom, the supposed second book written by Arabi, you will find the absence of the name or term Allah. Instead, you will find God used. Let's be clear. Brother Walter says at the time of Ibn al-Arabi in the 13th century, Islam didn't use the term Allah. Islam used the term God. And he cites as evidence Ibn al-Arabi, in whose works we find the term God, but we don't find the term Allah. And in this particular text, the Bezels of Wisdom, he cites as an example of Ibn al-Arabi's use of God and his non-use of Allah. Well, that's it. Now, in his book, Walter's book, the translation that he uses is that of Austin, and this is the first page of the Bezels of Wisdom, as translated by Austin, as relied upon by Brother Walter. And lo, Brother Walter is right. In the name of God, not Allah, the compassionate, the merciful, praise be to God, who has sent down the revelation of wisdom upon our hearts. There's a fundamental problem here. See, Ibn al-Arabi didn't know English. This isn't Ibn al-Arabi's text. This is Austin's English translation of Ibn al-Arabi's text. All Brother Walter had to do, if he could, was turn to Ibn al-Arabi's Arabic text. This is the first page of Ibn al-Arabi's Arabic text. Please hit the light, because what I'm about to do, I need minimal illumination. Yes, sir. This is the first page of Ibn al-Arabi's Bezels of Wisdom. The very first line on that page, Bismillah, Allah, Alhamdulillah, Allah, Wassalam, Allah. In case you can't make it out, Alhamdulillah. Go ahead.
Go ahead, God.
Wassalam, Allah. Not just those three, but 10 times on the first page of Ibn al-Arabi's Bezels of Wisdom, Ibn al-Arabi uses Allah. During the time of Arabi and in his writings, the term Allah is absent. In the Bezels of Wisdom, you will find an absence of the name or term Allah. God is used. Who are you trying to fool?
That's right.
Why do that?
Whose agency you with?
Why do that?
Yes, sir.
This is an egregious error.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Even if brother, if brother is unable to concede the difference between a text and this translation, and if brother is unable to consult the original, why be willing to make such claims? See, critical scholarship, good scholarship, should make us,
Take your time.
hesitate. Hesitate. Because, see, scholarship is a very contentious science. Because, and it should be. Some people, even in my camp, didn't want me to call names. It was suggested I just do me, you know, the whole clean glass versus dirty glass thing. But, you know, that doesn't work now because, see, scholarship is a contentious science. Respectfully, but it's a contentious science, and that contention is the engine of scholarship. Because if I am participating in a public discourse, if I'm contributing to a public discourse that will be examined by other scholars, and I know, and will be challenged by other scholars, I know every T must be crossed, every I must be dotted. So the contentiousness of scholarship is what drives good scholarship, and it makes scholars hesitate before making claims. If a claim can't be substantiated, then we know, we publish it, the community of scholars will challenge it.
Yes, sir.
And these are people who are participants in this public discourse. I am a participant in this public discourse. As you have the right and obligation to examine what I say, we have the right, I have the right as a fellow participant in this public discourse to examine their claims and call them to refine their scholarship as they have the right to call me to refine mine.
Yes, sir.
This suggests a willingness to be too imaginative, a willingness to speak on that which we know not. That's not scholarship. But the larger claim, was Islam the fabrication of 19th, 20th century European Arabs in collaboration with Jewish and Christian scholars? An interesting aspect of the current Egypto-metaphysical religion. Let me make that point. See, you listen to Brother Walter, you listen to Brother Phil, you get the sense that, well, no, I don't get the sense, they tell you, they're very anti-religious. You know, in a very Marxian sense, religion is the opium of the people. And there's a sense in which that is true. Religion as we do religion in the black community is very counterproductive. But you get the sense from our Afrocentric Egyptological scholars that religion, qua religion, is the enemy. And Walter says that religion is anti-Islam. I'm sorry, anti-African. Brother Walter never read, obviously, John Mbedi's important book, African Religion and Philosophy. The first line of which is Africans are notoriously religious. Yeah, I know you want to say, well, it's not religion, it's spirituality, that's semantics. Because what we find in Egypt was not a non-regulated, free-for-all spiritual, individual spirituality. We find a complicated cultic religious system.
Yes, sir.
It is my claim today and thereafter that Islam is an African religion.
That's right.
That Islam is as African a religion as any religion in this book by John M.B. It is my claim that Islam is as African as Orisha. It is my claim that Allah is as indigenously African a God as the deities of Yoruba or any religion in Africa. That is my claim. Lest you be the judge of whether Phil Valentine's critique is accurate. That I am using faith-based scholarship, which I'm twisting. See, the problem is when we think of Islam, we think of Arabs. Okay.
Critical mistake.
But then when we think of Arabs, we think of white Arabs.
That's right.
But these white Arabs know better. See, Islamic Arabic ethnography divides the Arabs up into two groups. That is to say, Muslim Arabs in their writing of Arabian ethno-history divide the populations of Arabia into two types of Arabs. Ariba Arabs, meaning pure or original Arabs, the original folk of Arabia. And Mustariba Arabs, Arabized Arabs, that is to say, non-Arab foreigners who immigrated into Arabia, lived among the Ariba Arabs, the original Arabs, learned the Arabic language, and became Arabized.
Yes, sir.
According to Muslim ethnographers, these white Arabs are Mustariba Arabs. Foreigners who immigrated into Arabia in the 13th century BC, learned the language, and became Arabized. Well, who are the Ariba Arabs? You probably Yahya, in his study, Dravidian and Negro African, Ethnic and Linguistic Affinities, says, quote, "It is now generally accepted that the Neolithic and early Middle Ages, about the 8th to the 3rd millennium BC, the vast region of Western Asia, with its extensions up to the Niles and the Indus, Nile valleys and the Indus, in modern-day Pakistan, was occupied by what may be called a blackish race with its local variations like Proto-Mediterranean, Mediterranean, and Hamite. This race is characterized by blackish brown complexion, long head, long, straight, and narrow face, etc. In spite of some local differences, like the Proto-Mediterranean type in Egypt and India, Hamitic type in East Africa, and the Ibero-Insular Mediterranean type from Anatolia to Western India, we can see on the whole a fundamental racial and cultural unity in all this part of the ancient world, which is rightly called the cradle of civilization. So Western Asia was originally populated by this black race. In regards to Arabia in particular, Henry Field, renowned anthropologist from the Field Museum in Chicago, in his book Ancient and Modern Man in Southwestern Asia, says the Arabian Peninsula was once occupied by people intermediate to the Somalis in Africa on the one hand and the Dravidian peoples of India on the other. Dravidian and Arab has in them an inheritance from a common stock, an inheritance which has been retained more completely by the natives of India than by the people of Arabia. The original Arab Arabs, the original population of Arabia, was akin to the original population of India, the Dravidian. This is how the original Arabs looked. In the 13th century, with the immigration of white hordes, which I will get to, it modified the population, but only some of the population. This is how the original Arabs, the prototypical Arab, originally looked. And this is how they look today. The Makra Arabs of South Arabia. They exist today in the southern, largely in the southern portion of the peninsula. These are black Arabs. The original Arabs.
Go ahead, black man.
It is
Yes, sir.
Brother Ranoko Rashid, whose scholarship I greatly admire. Sister Dana Reynolds Manetti, whose scholarship I greatly admire. They write about the Afro-Arab presence in Arabia. I value their work. However, they made an error. They trace this black Arab population to relatively recent times, 8,000 BC. No. These black Arabs originated at a time when Arabia was still Northeast Africa. Encyclopedia Britannica says Western Arabia formed part of the African landmass before a rift occurred in the Earth's crust, as a result of which the Red Sea was formed in Africa and the Arabian Peninsula finally became separated some 5 to 6 million years ago. Prior to 5 to 6 million years ago, the Arabian Peninsula, this is the Red Sea. Plate tectonics separated the continent from the peninsula 5 to 6 million years ago. Before that, Arabia was Northeast Africa. And even today, with the Red Sea separating the two, Maurice Tassi tells us, writing in the Annual Review of Anthropology, the Arabian Peninsula is today still the geological extension of Africa. Physically, the peninsula is a part of Africa, landscaped by the same geological and climate processes as the Eastern Sahara and the Ethiopian highlands. In general, Arabia today is the continuation of the African system across the Red Sea. Understand this, the Arabian Peninsula was originally a physical part of Africa. As recently as 5 million years ago, where plate tectonics produced the Red Sea, separating the peninsula from the continent. What does that have to do with our discussion? Hominid remains. The remains of human life were found in Central Arabia, similar to those in East Africa, 17 to 14 million years old, which means before Arabia separated from Africa. The population of Arabia and the population of East Africa were the same. 1 million years ago, Stone Age cultures in Central Arabia and 250,000 years ago, Stone Age cultures in Central Arabia, showing kinship with the Stone Age cultures of East Africa, have been discovered. What does this say? Afro-Arabs, the population of Arabia, existed before the Arabian Peninsula separated from Africa. In fact, the out of Africa dispersal models make clear that the first location out of Africa that the out of Africa migrants encountered was Northeast Africa, what we now call the Arabian Peninsula. And so the relationship between Arabia and the people of Arabia and the continent of Africa goes back to the time when Arabia was a part of the continent of Africa. And so these are not recent migrants to Africa.
That's right.
They originated when Africa and Arabia were one continent. These are Afro-Arabs. This is critical. What we're talking about are Africans in Arabia. Like we talk about Africans in America, Africans in Papua New Guinea, Africans in Brazil. We're talking about Africans in Arabia. Current Muslim Arab ethnography, the writing of the ethno-history of Arabia, details, names 12 tribes, original tribes of Arabia. Ad, Ahmad, Tazim, Malik, Amin, Jassim, Durham, Abil, Jadis, Uz, Jaffa, Salih. We learned that the Mahra of South Arabia are the descendants of the tribe of Ad. One of those original 12 tribes of Arabia, when Arabia was Northeast Africa. We're talking about Afro-Arabs. And these are the originators of Islam. These are the bringers of Islam to the world. Now, in 13th century BC, a horde of whites, Indo-European, Indo-Aryan whites invaded Arabia. The Kassites settled on the eastern Gulf, the Gulf coast of Arabia, the eastern portion of the Arabian Peninsula. The Sabians migrated further to southern Arabia. These are the origin of the white Arab. They are the Mustariba Arab, the converted Arab, the Arabized Arab. These are the original Arabs. These are not the creators of Islam. And so the error that is made in saying Islam is an Arab religion, and then associating Islam and the Arabism with these, shows a lack of knowledge of Arabian ethno-history. And see, the point is, I will prove that right now I'm just making a claim that these people originated Islam. Don't clap yet. I have yet to prove that. But to associate Arabism with these, as is done across Afrocentric scholarship, even the great Chancellor Williams.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
Who is not a ghetto scholar.
Right, sir.
He has good scholarship,
Yes, sir.
but he made an error. But his error is based on the limitation of the sources he had available to him at his time. There's no excuse today.
That's right.
To make this mistake is proof of a lack of familiarity with the subject of which we speak. I said Allah was as African a God. As Olodumare of the Orisha, and as any other God on the African continent. Samuel Zwin. But history establishes beyond a shadow of a doubt that even the pagan Arabs before Muhammad's time knew that chief God by the name of Allah, and even in a sense proclaimed his unity. See, there are those who make the claim that Prophet Muhammad found the female goddess Alat, worshipped by the Arabians, and transformed her into a male god Allah. You know, the very sexist, misogynistic man that he was. He couldn't tolerate a feminine deity, so he transformed her into a male deity. This is a common theme in Afrocentric literature, which is completely fallacious, ahistorical. But history established beyond a shadow of a doubt that even the pagan Arabs before Muhammad's time knew their chief God by the name Allah, and even in a sense proclaimed his unity. Muhammad found the worship of Allah Ta'ala among the Arabs when he came of age. He did not originate that. 1,000 inscriptions dating to 500 BC found in North Central and South Arabia, in which we find the invocation of the God Allah. Oh Allah, permit me to accomplish salvation. This is 1,000 years before Prophet Muhammad is born. Oh Allah, permit me to accomplish salvation. Oh Allah, God without offspring. Oh Allah, guide me that I may attain prosperity. And Walter says Allah wasn't created until the 13th century. Oh Allah, God without offspring, knower of men. Get witness, Allah before Islam, printed in the Muslim world, 1938. But the question is, of course, the Yemenite who produced these inscriptions, invoking Allah as God, why can't they be the white Arabs? That proves that Allah was worshipped in Arabia before Muhammad. Doesn't necessarily prove that the black Arabs originated Islam. No, it doesn't in and of itself. Except that Lihyan, the tribe responsible for those inscriptions, are part of the Hutab tribe, which is a descendant of Germany. And who is Germany? One of the 12 black tribes of Arabia. Thus, the Encyclopedia of Islam notes that their skins were black and shiny. These were black worshippers of Islam, of Allah, 1,000 years before Prophet Muhammad was born. These were the Afro-Arabs who worshipped Allah 1,000 years before Muhammad was ever born. St. Clair Tisdale, the original sources of the Quran, not only in reference to Allah Ta'ala and to reverence for the black stone in the Kaaba, but in many other matters also Islam has borrowed from the Arabs of more ancient times, the Arab Arabs. It is not too much to say that most of the religious rites and ceremonies which now prevail throughout the Mohammedan world are identical with with those practiced in Arabia from immemorial antiquity. These ancient Arabs used to make pilgrimage Hajj to the house, the Kaaba. The water claims that Ibn al-Arabi in the 13th century was the first to create the Hajj. These ancient Arabs used to make pilgrimage Hajj to the house, the Kaaba, and visit the consecrated stones and wear the ihram and perform the tawaf and run between the sacred hills and take their stand at all the stations and cast the stones at the double in the valley of Mina. The whole system of Islam was practiced by the Afro-Arabs thousands of years before the birth of Prophet Muhammad. Sheikh Diab, in the African origin of civilization, says, thus, all of the elements necessary for the blossoming of Islam were in place more than 1,000 years before the birth of Muhammad. Islam would appear as a purification of Sabiism by the messenger of God. Islam is Afro-Arab religion. It's not a white Arab religion. Now you have to understand the terminology that I will be employing henceforth. I shall be referring to pre-Quranic Islam, by which I mean Islam among the indigenous Afro-Arabians prior to the revelation of the Quran in 610-632. Now, of course, Brother Walter says there was no revelation of the Quran in 632. We'll get to that in a minute. Indulge me for the moment as we work out the terminology I'm going to be employing so as not to confuse you. So pre-Quranic Islam is Islam among the indigenous Afro-Arabians prior to the revelation of the Quran. Quranic Islam, by which I mean Islam as articulated in the Quran. And post-Quranic Islam, by which I mean Islam as it was developed after the termination of Quranic revelation in 632. Do you follow?
Yes, sir.
Pre-Quranic, Quranic, post-Quranic Islam. Pre-Quranic Islam was black Islam. Pre-Quranic Islam was Afro-Arabian Islam. Sheikh Diab says when Muhammad was born, Arabia was a Negro colony with Mecca as its capital. See, when the white hordes entered Arabia in the 13th century, many of the Afro-Arabs migrated south, but not all of them. Northern Arabia at the time of Prophet Muhammad was home to two types of tribes. There's both the white Mustariba tribes, actually three types of tribes, I'm sorry. There was the Ariba tribes, the black tribes, still in Mecca, still in the Hijaz area. And there were the hybrid tribes. Some miscegenation took place, but not a lot. Because the black Arabs, as well as the white Arabs, were very Puritan in their thinking. And endogamy was practiced, meaning a refusal to mate with those white hordes. So most of the blackness of Arabia was intact at that time. Now that would change, but it would change when Muslim caliphs started importing white women from Europe to fill the harem. And that changed the complexion of Arabia, changed the complexion of Islam. But that's a later development. We're not there yet. Pre-Quranic Islam was black Islam, and Quranic Islam was black Islam.
Teach, Muhammad.
Come on, good teaching.
Let me say this. I know that offends some Muslims. Islam is universal. This talk of black Islam is offensive. I understand that. Islam, fine, it's universal and its message is good for the family of humanity. This is true. I understand that. I'm not denying that. But we want clarity. This is a historical discussion, not a theological discussion right now. So for the purposes of historical clarity, I must be descriptive, because still when we think of Islam, we think of these folk. And I want to get that out of you. So I have to be clear and speak of black Islam. Meaning Islam as articulated, as developed and progressed by black Arabians, Afro-Arabians. And there are 4 tribes that were prominent either at the time of Prophet Muhammad in the reception of revelation, or in the immediate post-Quranic period during the time of the 4 righteous kings. They are very important to understanding the history of Islam. The Banu Sakum, from the clan of Banu Kinda, which was the most prominent South Arabian tribe. Forgive my spelling. Banu Sulaim, a northern tribe in eastern Hijaz and Najd. Banu Khazraj, a southern tribe relocated in the north in Medina, which were the Ansar. The helpers of Muhammad in Medina were Banu Khazraj, a jet black tribe. We'll get to that in a second. And most importantly, Banu Quraysh, the tribe with which Prophet Muhammad was born. The most prominent northern tribe in Mecca at the time of Muhammad, and the black tribe par excellence. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Quraysh. There's no understanding of Islam. There is no understanding of Islam in this Quranic development without understanding the Quraysh. Let me bring to your attention the statement by our father, Ibn al-Abbas, the cousin of Prophet Muhammad, from his uncle al-Abbas, died in 680. Our father, a Qurayshi Arab, a pure Qurayshi Arab, made this statement: I am the black-skinned one. My complexion is black. I am from the noble house of the Arabs. This is critical. At this time, nobility is associated with blackness among the Arabs. That will change. And nobility will be associated with whiteness, and thus we get the white Muhammad that Afrocentrists like to carve out as an indication of the whiteness of Islam. But the idea of white Arab nobility is 2 centuries old. Originally, nobility and purity of blood is associated with black skin. In fact, black skin is euphemistically means purity of blood. So Ibn al-Manzur, who wrote the most authoritative Arabic lexicon, the Sana Arab, speaking of Al-Fadl's statement, explains that Al-Fadl says, I am pure because the color of the Arabs is black. It's Qurayshi Arab. This is Muhammad's cousin. Now, Muhammad's grandfather, Abdul Muttalib, he had 10 sons. Some important sons are Abu Talib, the father of Ali, the patronym of Shiism, Abdullah, the father of Prophet Muhammad himself. Al-Abbas, the father of Al-Fatih. What else do we know about these 10 sons of Abdul Muttalib, of the paramount Quraysh tribe? Al-Jahiz, a 9th century literate, speaking of the family of Prophet Muhammad, explains the 10 lordly sons of Abdul Muttalib, the Prophet's grandfather. The 10 sons were very black in color and tall. When Amir ibn Tufayl saw them circumambulating the Kaaba like dark camels, he said, with such men as these is the Quran, is the Kaaba reserved. That is to say, the 10 sons of Abdul Muttalib, of the Qurayshi tribe, all jet black, including the father of Ali, the father of Prophet Muhammad, the father of Al-Abbas. This is the Quraysh par excellence, which is the black tribe par excellence. The Quraysh were a black tribe in Mecca. And the Quraysh in pre-Quranic time were known throughout Arabia as Ahlullah, the people of Allah. At religious ceremonies, Abdul Muttalib and the Quraysh would proclaim, Nahnu Ahlullah. We are the people of Allah. This black tribe, prior to Muhammad, were known throughout Arabia as the people of Allah. This is Afro-Arab Islam.
Teach, Mr. Muhammad, teach.
Abdullah, the Prophet's father, his name means servant of Allah. Before Muhammad was born, Muhammad's other cousin, Ubaydullah, worshiper of Allah, in Muhammad's family, there was black Islam. Now, you may rightly say, well, what was the need of the Quran? If there was this Islam. Well, the need was generated by the worshippers of Allah, not discontinuing worship of Allah, but conjoining worship of Allah with idolatry. I'm going to say this. We use the term polytheism, but that's not really the correct term, because it suggests that the acknowledgement of multiple divine beings is un-Islamic, is un-Quranic, and that's not true. That's another subject for another time. The problem was idolatry. The problem was, at this point, Allah and in their mind, intermediates were worshipped through the worship of man-made statues, which was simple in the eyes of the revealer of the Quran. So what we have here at the pre-Islamic period is not a period absent the worship of Allah. It's a period witnessing the corruption of the worship of Allah. Because Allah is still worshipped, but he's worshipped on par with his helpers. His helpers that were rightly acknowledged in the past. God has helpers. 24 of them.
That's right.
12 of which have a different function and significance than the other 12.
That's right.
Go ahead.
But that's helpers.
That's good teaching.
So that wasn't the problem. The problem was that the helpers were exalted and were worshipped through idolatry. But even in that situation, there were, in pre-Quranic time, there was a black Islam, free of the corruption. They call them the Hanifs. Black Arabian worshippers acknowledges of the oneness of Allah, the rejection of idolatry. And one of them, Zayd ibn Ahmad, was the first one to introduce Prophet Muhammad to the worship of Allah, the one God. Yeah, I know Muslims don't like this part of the biography. And thus fabricate a biography. And in that sense, Brother Walter is correct in his rejection of the orthodox biography of the prophet. It is fallacious. It is embellished. It is ahistorical. I'm sorry, I'm a historian of religion. It is what it is. But the mistake that Brother Walter makes is logical. So he's guilty of a logical fallacy. That because the orthodox biography is embellished, that means Muhammad never existed. It's a logical fallacy. We'll get to that shortly. Actually, we'll get to that right now. Did Prophet Muhammad exist? Brother Walter says there never has been a man of traditional Islam that ever walked the earth in human form by the name Muhammad, called the prophet. Whoa, that's a big claim. I'm going to say this. Brother Walter was on the radio last week. Talktainmentradio.com. And our brother said, I will give $5,000.
Go get that, bro.
Go get his money? He's an elder.
Cash money.
Because this is impersonal. This is a hustle for me.
Go ahead.
But brother said, I will give $5,000 to anyone who can produce historical evidence that Prophet Muhammad lived. I can take my brother's money. Or at least call him to up it. But I respect Brother Walter. Don't make a mistake. This is scholarship in contention. It's not personal. That's my brother. I love him. I don't have a personal beef with him. This is academic.
That's right.
Go ahead.
But it's also more than academic.
That's right.
Because this is about the intellectual and spiritual health of a people.
That's right.
And our people need a right teaching.
That's right.
And so when Brother Walter, Brother Phil, and others challenge the religious dogmatism fed to our people, they are right. I joined them. But we can't replace one dogmatism with another.
That's right.
That's not edifying. We can't call the people to exchange one pious history for another pious history. That is, say, one fictitious history for another fictitious history. Brother says, Ibn al-Arabi is the real person whose biography and life was used to create the created creature, the Prophet Muhammad, for traditional Islam. So this is brother's claim. Muhammad never existed because there is no non-Muslim historical sources testifying to his existence. The traditional or canonical biography is embellished and unreliable. And 3, the fabricated traditional or canonical biography originated with the real biography of Ibn al-Arabi, who died in the 13th century. Point number one, Muhammad never existed because there is no non-Muslim historical sources testifying to his existence. We're going to get to that in a second. The traditional or canonical biography is embellished and unreliable. That is absolutely correct. In my dissertation, my doctoral dissertation, I demonstrate, for example, there's some critical aspects of the biography of the prophet. It's non-historical. You know, like the angel Jibril coming upon Muhammad in the cave, Mount Hira, revealing, read in the name of thy Lord, who created man. That's an ahistorical, embellished narrative. I'm sorry, it is. My dissertation is available for free at drwesleymuhammad.com. Download it and let's discuss it. The story of the ascension to heaven. You know. The winged steed, Barak. The prophet mounts the winged steed with a human face and wings, who carts him through the 7 heavens, meeting a prophet along the way. I am not saying that no theological, symbolic significance can be extracted from that. You can extract theological significance from a lot. But we err in saying that it is Quranic, because it is not. And we know the history of it. And that narrative developed over a century after the prophet departed. So it's a part of the embellished biography of the prophet. The prophet's biography is embellished. You are right, Brother Walter. Does that mean Prophet Muhammad never existed? Because his orthodox biography is embellished? We will get to point number 1. Point number 3, he says, the fabricated, traditional, or canonical biography originated with the real biography of Ibn al-Arabi, died in the 13th century. In other words, the orthodox biography that we have is Ibn al-Arabi's biography, or was generated by his followers in the 13th century, drawn from his life. As a problem. A problem that could have been avoided rather easily if brother would do what is said among the gods, knowledge before he wisdom.
That's right. Go ahead, break it down.
A cursory review of the literature would have made it impossible for brother to make that claim. You see, this right here is a series of the Messenger of Muhammad, written by Ibn al-Ishaq. It's written, Ibn al-Ishaq died in 773. We don't have his seerah, his biography of the Prophet. This is the canonical biography of the Prophet. The embellished, not historical biography of the Prophet. It was edited by Ibn Hisham, who died in 883. So we have today, the 9th century, Ibn Hisham recension of Ibn Ishaq's canonical biography of the Prophet. We even have it in the English translation. Now this is a 9th century text, which doesn't at all mean the Prophet's biography is historical, but it does mean it pre-existed Ibn al-Arabi by centuries.
Good point. Good point.
All brother had to do was do a cursory study. He could have got the English translation of the 9th century text. It can be argued that Ibn Hisham corrupted what Ibn Ishaq wrote, and he did. It can be argued that this is an embellished biography, and it is. But it's a 9th century text. Ibn Arabi wasn't a thought in anybody's mind for centuries. How then can the canonical biography that appears here originate with a man born centuries later? What really is going on? Brother says, I want to remind the reader that in the study of Byzantine history in era, 395 to 453, there is no mention of a prophet Muhammad, of Islam, or of Muslims. Presumably he means in non-Muslim literature. From the period 395 to 1453, there is no mention of a prophet Muhammad, Islam, or Muslims. To be honest, this gets painful after a point. Because I do respect my brother as an elder, but being an elder gives nobody a pass.
That's right.
See, these claims and the errors, the error of these claims could have been avoided by a legitimate historical study. See, Robert Hoyland, professor in Arabic, Middle East Studies at St. Andrews University, in 1997, published a very important book, 820-page book, Seeing Islam as Other Solid, a survey and evaluation of Christian, Jewish, and Zoroastrian writings on early Islam. It is 120 non-Muslim documents in the 1st century of Islam. These documents speaking about Islam from their perspective. Most of these are Greek, Armenian, Latin, and some Chinese. They are reactions to the conquest from the Muslims. As the initial wave of Muslims erupted out of Arabia, conquering the immediate area, the people who were conquered reacted to their conquerors. And we find, for example, the Chronicle of Thomas, the priest, written around 640, written in Greek. And Thomas says, in the year 945, in Diction 7, on Friday, 4 February, which is 634 in church chronology, Usherian church chronology, 634. At the 9th hour, there was a battle between the Romans and the Arabs. A Muhammad, a who? A Muhammad in Palestine, 12 miles east of Gaza. The Romans fled, leaving behind the patrician Regan, whom the Arabs killed. This is a 7th century Greek Christian document talking about the Arabs as they invaded Palestine in a battle that took place by Gaza. It said this is a battle between the Romans and the Arabs of Muhammad. an Armenian source, the Sabios Chronicle, written around 660. Sabios says, at this time there was an Ishmael, he wrote a chronicle of the world. And in this section dealing with the latter 7th century wherein he lived, so at this time there was an Israelite called Muhammad, a merchant. He presented himself to them as though at God's command, as a preacher, as a way of truth, and taught them to know the God of Abraham, for he was very well informed and very well acquainted with the story of Moses. Since the command came from on high, they all came together at a single order in unity of religion, and abandoning vain cults, returned to the living God who had revealed himself to their father Abraham. It is a priest. Now, he has some very, don't be deceived by the friendly tone of this passage. He has some very non-friendly things to say, but in here he acknowledges Muhammad as a preacher among the Arabs, around whom the Arabs unified, and he said he legislated for them not to eat carrion, not to drink wine, not to speak falsely, and not to commit fornication. Written 660. An Israelite called Muhammad, which was the corruption of the Western corruption of Muhammad. And he knew him as a merchant. There are aspects of the canonical biography. There's a nucleus, there's a kernel of historical truth. We're going to talk about how we might mine that out in a moment, or whether we can mine that out in a moment. Not only are there non-Muslim 7th century literary documents attesting to the existence of this Muhammad, this prophet among the Arabs, but there's physical evidence in the form of epitaphs, inscriptions written on tombstones. And there are tombstones dating from 691, 720, 771, and 814, which bear, among other things, reference to Islam. Because remember, Brother Walter says that first Mohammedanism emerged in the 13th century. And it wasn't until centuries later where it became Islam. And he says that there is no mention of Islam or Muhammad in the Byzantine era, 375 to 1453. But look, Holding says of these 4 epitaphs, the term Islam features in inscriptions from a very early date, but its nature or content is never explained. It is simply stated that, quote, religion with God is Islam. Find that on the inside inscription of the Dome of the Rock, 691. Or, quote, our religion is Islam, an inscription on a mosque of Medina, inscribed 706. My religion is Islam, an epitaph for Jabal Usais, who died in 737. Hoyland says, one thing is clear, however, namely that Islam is closely connected with Muhammad. It is the religion of truth entrusted to him by God. It is what he guided his community to and what he described. And a game changer. See, this is a coin issued by the Umayyad Caliph Abdul Malik, who reformed the coinage of Islam prior to his reform movement of the late 7th century. Islamic coins were simply the coins of the lands that they conquered. So in Byzantine lands, Byzantine coinage was continued. In Sasanian or Zoroastrian lands, Sasanian coinage was continued. But Abdul Malik, in the late 7th century, reformed the coinage, issued Islamic coinage, took the Byzantine or Zoroastrian gods off the coin and replaced them. Now, I need see? Muhammad, Rasul, Allah. Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. It is in the museum in Jordan, the National Museum in Jordan, today. So Huygens, in this great book, which, again, a cursory study of Islamic history would have brought this work to Brother Walter's attention. This is it's a standard work, the most exhaustive work of Islam in non-Islamic sources. Huygens concludes thus: non-Muslim and archaeological testimonials, when carefully supplemented by Muslim evidence, can give us some interesting insights into the first century of Islam. In the early 640s, the historical record alerts us to a new phenomenon disrupting the familiar course of late antique world. Arabs, equipped with a new name, Muhajirun, in a new era, were overrunning regions as far afield as Egypt and Iraq. Patently, a new movement had been born, but its nature is unclear. Non-Muslim writers in the first century AH, after the Hijrah, attest that it was strictly monotheistic and iconoclastic. It was against idols and icons, images. That its adherents had a sanctuary, the house of God, of Abrahamic association, called Kaaba, towards which they prayed and at which they sacrificed and reverenced a stone. And also that they followed Muhammad, who was their guide and instructor, whose tradition and laws they fiercely upheld. It is thus evident that the early Muslims did adhere to a cult that had definite practices and beliefs and was clearly distinct from other currently existing faiths. This is also confirmed by archaeology for the period beginning in 691, when inscriptions proclaiming allegiance to Muhammad and his religion are found in abundance on buildings, milestones, rocks, coins, papyri, textiles, and so on. Quote, "Our Lord is the one God, our religion is Islam, and our prophet is Muhammad," as it is succinctly put by Walid in his inscription of 706 on the mosque of Damascus. I can call, brother, to get my $5,000.
Go ahead. Get that stimulus package, bro.
In terms of the canonical biography of the prophet, which is embellished, most of which is not historical. But does that mean that the Arabic literature is unable to tell us anything about the prophet? The canonical biography developed around the late 8th, 9th century. Can we get behind that orthodox development in the Arabic literature? Actually, we can. See, I want to say this. We have to stop writing on subjects with which we have minimal familiarity. And I'm saying in particular, let's start writing on the history of Islam without getting the requisite training to do so. Because we make a mess of things and embarrass ourselves.
That's right.
Because, see, if you don't read Arabic and German, stop. The English literature on Islam is sufficient to introduce readers to Islam. It is absolutely insufficient to qualify one to write on Islam. Most of the critical scholarship on Islam is German. So if you don't want to, if you can't learn Arabic, you can do mildly okay, learn German. Even with the knowledge of Arabic, you need to know the German. Because the critical scholarship is done in German. But without those critical tools, you need to stop writing history of Islam. You can't write the history of Islam adequately without those tools, because you can't write the history of Islam without being able to engage the primary sources. And there are so many of our black scholars writing on Islam.
Go ahead.
We need to stop that. I'm sorry, stop.
Come on.
There are many subjects that we can write on, but if you are not qualified to engage the primary text
Go ahead.
in the relevant critical scholarship, leave it alone. Write about something else.
Go ahead. Get that $5,000.
Gregor Schober, professor of Islamic studies, University of Basel, Switzerland. He has demonstrated, has developed a critical methodology whereby the Arabic sources can be mined such that we can trace a biography. Whether it's the biography or not is yet to be determined, but we can trace a biography going back to the 7th century. Which means it gets us around the orthodox biography of the late 8th, 9th century by 100 years. Now, that biography may or may not be the biography, historical. But what this does show is that we are in a position now to produce, and he has a grant in Switzerland to produce such a biography, a 7th century biography, which further demonstrate the fallacy of the claim that Muhammad began with Ibn al-Arabi. There is no discussion of Muhammad until the 13th century. Even some black scholars that I admire, Wayne Chandler, for example, was not at all a ghetto scholar. He's a good scholar. But writing on Islam, without the requisite skills, see, it's like me entering the academic medical discourse having only read my college biology textbook. I don't know the jargon, the technical jargon, because textbooks aren't jargonized. It's especially made amendable to, accessible to non-scholars. So I won't learn a medical jargon by my freshman biology textbook. Yet I would presume to write on and enter into the public scholarly discourse, a medical discussion. Nor can I intelligently examine human anatomy. Not in its detail, so I can't really draw on a primary source of human anatomy. And the extent of my literary introduction or literary expertise is a textbook. How foolish am I to presume to enter the academic discourse on medicine? Would you buy a book from me on medicine? I wouldn't buy a book from me on medicine. But this is what we do. We have to stop. We have to resist. Everybody has an opinion. But damn, everybody don't have to put every one of our opinions on paper and enter it into the public discussion.
Right, exactly.
Brother says the Quran was written and formulated by Jewish scholars and rabbis of the Jewish organization, the Alliance Israelite Universal of Paris, France, and Syria in 1870, and accepted by the Arab world, the Arab Mohammedan world in Cairo, Egypt in 1919. There's no Quran before these Jews formulated it in 1870. This is what our brother says. This whole development could have been avoided. This lecture could have been preempted, but it never happened. If brother just engaged the standard academic, not Muslim, none of these are Muslims, the standard academic literature. For example, had brother availed himself to Francois de Rocher's The Abbasid Tradition Qurans in the 8th to the 10th centuries AD, he would have readily available the evidence of early Qurans. De Rocher demonstrates in the Abbasid tradition the earliest copies which can be dated or which have been dated using reliable evidence are known to originate in the 2nd quarter of the 9th century, around 850. Now, how do we date Qurans? Because it's argument. It's a legitimate argument. Right? Making these claims for these early Qurans. And Muslims have made exaggerated claims, claiming that the Quran of Uthman is in existence, and some of these I will show you goes back to Uthman. No. How do we date Quranic manuscripts? There's 4 ways to date Quranic manuscripts. Codicology, the study of the materials used in the history of the codex, whether it was papyrus or parchment. Paleography, the study of the ancient writing, or orthography, how the letters, how the writing appears. Because writing has a development. For example, some of the Qurans are written in the Hijazi script, which is different from the Kufic script. And whether this manuscript is in Hijazi or Kufic allows us to date it to one period or the other. Because there's a time when Hijazi was used and then it was stopped. It was discontinued. There's a time when Kufic was used and then it was discontinued. Philology, the study of language through text. And radiocarbon dating. Samarkand Quran, dates in the 9th century. It is currently in the Tashkent Library in Uzbekistan. This Quranic manuscript was carbon dated by Oxford University in 1992 and was able to confirm that this was written sometime between 565 and 855. That's what the carbon dating told us. The orthography allowed us to narrow that window because it's Kufic. And we know this is late Abbasid Kufic. So this was written not in the 7th century as the Muslims wanted to take the lower end of that carbon dating. Hoping to identify this with Uthman's text. But we know that is impossible. Because the script is Kufic, late Abbasid Kufic, which means it was developed in the late 9th century. Which means we don't have the Quran of Prophet Muhammad here, but also means we have a Quran long before the Jews of 1870. Now, I want to say this about the Quran. See, Muslims ill serve our cause by distorting history. It makes you, so I'm speaking right now as a historian of religion, makes you easy targets. See, Brother Phil said Islam is on the block. Phil isn't qualified to really bring it to Muslims because, he's offering a fictitious history. They offer a fictitious history. And their fictitious history is easier to document. Because Phil's and Walter's fictitious history is so imaginative.
Comic book.
Comic books. And he accuses me of resorting to faith-based scholarship. No, what I say is a challenge to the faith of many Muslims. Because it does not behoove us. Well, let me say this. No. That is not the Quran of Uthman. We have to show, speaking of Muslims in the Nation of Islam, or whatever, under whoever's leadership, or Muslims in some way, shape, or form affiliate themselves with the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We don't have to co-sign the pious fictions of Orthodox Islam. It does not serve us well to do so. See, we don't have the Quran today of Prophet Muhammad. No, you don't. See, the Quran we have is a recension of the third caliph, Uthman. He standardized this Quran. He is responsible for its codifications, bringing together. But there were Qurans prior to Uthman's Quran that differed in ways from Uthman's Quran. Uthman ordered them destroyed. And that was resisted bitterly. There was a Quran in Kufa by Ibn Mas'ud who differed, for example, from our Quran in that it didn't have Surat al-Fatiha. Didn't have the 113, 114 surahs of the Quran. Nor did the Syrian, the Basra Quran by Abu Musa had those surahs, but it also had surahs not in our current Quran. In Damascus and in Syria in general, outside of Damascus, there were different Qurans. Uthman ordered their destruction after he codified his Quran. And this, in the Quran of Uthman, was bitterly opposed by many of the companions of the Prophet because they charged that it was, among other things, incomplete. As-Suyuti reports from Ibn Umar, the son of the second king, none of you can say, I have the whole Quran. What does one know of its totality? Many passages have disappeared from the Quran, but one should say, I have what we know of it. This is important. I say this to Muslims. See, the revelatory template presented to us by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad can accommodate this historical data. We don't need to get bent all up out of shape because we learn the Quran that we have is incomplete. If you're an Orthodox Muslim, yeah, you justifiably get bent out of shape because your revelatory paradigm can accommodate empirical data like this. It's a pious fiction. So yeah, you have some decisions to make. But Muslim affiliates of the teachers of Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we don't have to make that decision. The decision between dogma and documentation. Because the revelatory template provided by Honorable Elijah Muhammad can accommodate the historical data. The Uthmanic Quran that we have today, one of the differences between the other variants is how certain words were pointed and vowed, which means how certain words were read. I want to cite one example, which is an ironic example, but which is important. See, Phil and them can't accuse me of Muslim dogma. This is who's doing faith-based scholarship. See, Metaphysics is a religion.
Go ahead. Yes. There you go. There you go.
It's a religion because it is based on faith. Faith about what ancient Egypt was, a distorted picture of Egypt. And investing religious faith in it and what it can do for us. That's religion. That's textbook religiosity.
Yes, sir.
Distortion of fact, the investment of faith in that distorted image, clinging to it in spite of the evidence. See, what they want to do is ask us to replace one religion for another.
That's right.
I say, leave them alone. Be critical. See, I called for this in Toronto. All of them. Let's put them on the table. Let's put Islam on the table as taught by the Muslim world. Let's put Islam on the table as taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Let's put Christianity on the table, Buddhism, Hinduism, Afrocentric or Egypto metaphysics on the table. Come on the table. Let's discuss this.
That's right. That's what we need to do.
Let's all provide the empirical evidence in support of what we claim.
That's right.
And see who the last Mohican will be. When the dust settles and the smoke clears, whose claims have the greatest amount of empirical support? Let's do it. I promise you, Muhammad is the last Mohican.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
I offer this, I suggest this to any community organizers. A great conference, from my perspective, would be Brother Phil, Brother Walter, myself, on the value of Egypt. See, in a sense, Brother Phil and Brother Walter are strange bedfellows. Because Brother Phil has a Kemetic university, and through which he teaches Medunetta. Brother Walter says Kemet was never a designation for Egypt, and that Medunetta has never been deciphered. So if it's never been deciphered, you can't teach Medunetta. So Brother Phil and Brother Walter fundamentally disagree on Egyptology. So let's bring us together. See, I want to make my contribution to the public discussion on Egypt. You guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And I will offer that ancient Egypt was great. Ancient Egypt is a critical, indispensable piece of the puzzle of truth. It is not the truth. It is a critical piece of the puzzle of truth. Just as critical is Sumeria, the civilization and theology created by the Afro-Sumerians.
Yes, sir.
Egypt is not more important theologically in Sumeria. The Indic text of ancient India, all of these are critical pieces of the puzzle of truth. And I will argue that Sumeria is great, Sumeria is dead. Indus is great, Indus is dead. Ancient Egypt was great, ancient Egypt is dead. But I will argue that the closest living example that you will get to the wisdom of the ancient Egyptian mysteries is the supreme wisdom of Master Muhammad. That is my plan. So you community organizers,
Come on, God.
set it up.
That's what I'm talking
Surah Ahzab, 33rd chapter. Muhammad was not the father of any of your men, but messenger of Allah and the seal of the prophets. A very important Quranic text, especially in the context of intra-Muslim discussion. This passage is routinely cited by Orthodox Muslims against the Nation of Islam, who claim that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is the messenger of God. The argument is that no, Prophet Muhammad was the seal of the prophet, therefore there was no revelation, no prophecy, no messengership after him. Well, the term seal of the prophets can read hatim or hatim an-nabi. Hatim, I-M, with a kesra, or hatam, with a fatam. What's the difference? Actually, a very significant difference. Alim, the foremost Kufic grammarian, said, hatim, I-M, is the one who seals or closes the prophets. Hatim or tim means no more prophets, no more messengership. On the other hand, hatim, the fatah, means the best of the prophets in character and physical constitution. So the question is Prophet Muhammad hatim or hatim an-nabiyyin of the prophets? Is he the closer of the prophets, or is he the best of the prophets? Which doesn't mean there's no more prophets after him. The irony is, our Quran, Uthman's Quran, says, وَحَتَمْ an-nabiyyin. And he is the best, he is the best of the prophets. That's actually what the Uthmanic Codex says. But that's not how we read it. Aisha, the wife of the prophet, the favorite wife of the prophet, say that the prophet is the seal of the prophets, hatam an-nabiyyin, and do not say that there is no prophet after him. What has happened, even though the current Quran, Uthman's Quran, reads hatam, the best of the prophets, the meaning of hatim is transferred to the text of the Uthmanic Codex. The Uthmanic Codex is left alone, presents the prophet as the best of the prophets. Not the last, not the end of prophecy. Why do I dwell on this point? Because Muslims must abandon our inclination to pious fiction. This discourse is too serious. This discourse is too serious. And dogmatism, be it Muslim, Christian, black Muslim, will continue being under attack. And you have no leg to stand on. Because this is an age of cynicism and skepticism.
That's right. Yes, sir.
It's also the age of abundant source access. This is a day where, in truth, things will be clarified. We're in a better position today than in times past. What time is it? It's 7 o'clock. My apologies. I will. So I want to get this on record. My team, how are you?
Fine, sir.
Yeah. I will continue to as the last one. if you have to leave, feel free. You can get the remainder of the presentation on DVD. But I want to get this on record, so this is a message. Send it as a letter, audio-visual letter, to Brother Walter, Brother Phil, Brother Ray, Brother Alim. Was Muhammad black or white? Inevitably, the question arises. J.A. Rogers' Sex and Race, published in 1941, says, Muhammad himself was to all accounts a Negro. A contemporary of his describes him as large-mouthed and bluish-colored, with hair that was neither straight nor curly, that is, hair that was probably frizzly like that of the Fuzzy Wuzzy. Bluish also happens to be the precise color of certain very Negroid natives of the Sudan. Muhammad's mother was also African. I quote this because our brother J.A. Rogers, who was an intellectual powerhouse, was wrong. And his errors here indicate that even with the best intention, without being able to access the relevant materials, you just get it wrong. We get it wrong. See? Brother Joe may say mistake. He encounters a description of Prophet Muhammad as bluish color. And he assumes that it means what it means in the Sudan. And what else, you know, blue-black. Right. He got this description, he quotes David Margaleo, his book Muhammad and the Rise of Islam, who quotes that description of Prophet Muhammad. Margaleo quotes Ibn Hanbal's Musnad and Al-Bukhari's Sahih Hadith collections. About 10 minutes. The mistake that brother makes is he doesn't understand that Arabic chromatology, the study of colors, is different from our study of colors. See, in Arabic, white and black can be noted in different ways. White, Abyad, is also written as Ahmar, red. And it's also written as Azraq, blue. That is, say blue in Arabic means white, not blue-black. They don't say blue-black, they say green-black. Because Aswad black in Arabic is written Akhdar, green. So it's green-black in Arabic, blue-white. And so the description of Prophet Muhammad as blue does not mean that he was black. That particular description described him as white. And thus, the famous description of the Prophet found in Sahih Bukhari, narrated by Anas ibn Malik. While we were sitting with the Prophet in the mosque, a man came riding on a camel. He made his camel kneel down in the mosque, tied his foreleg, and then said, "Who amongst you is Muhammad?" At that time, the Prophet was sitting amongst us, his companions leaning on his arm. And we replied, "This white man reclining on his arm." Also narrated by Abu Hurairah, says Prophet Muhammad was a medium build, closer to being tall. His skin was extremely white, his hair was black. Case closed, huh? Nope. Okay, we got Bukhari He's white. No, case is not closed. In Timothy, the student of Bukhari, have a fuller discussion of the description of Prophet Muhammad. And Anas Ibn Malik says specifically, the messenger of Allah was neither very tall, such that he would be clearly noticed, nor was he short. He was not extremely white. First we met that he was extremely white. Now we meet that he was not extremely white, nor was he very brown. His hair was neither very curly nor completely straight. That's the first hadith. The second hadith says this in this collection. The messenger of Allah was a medium stature, neither tall nor short, a goodly build. His hair was neither curly nor completely straight. He had a brownish complexion. And when he walked, he leaned forward. Now, I'm going to abbreviate this. The evidence clearly indicates that this is the earlier and most authentic description of Prophet Muhammad as brown skinned. Where and why do we get his genealogy, for example, attest to it? All of his cousins, his uncles were black. He's from the black tribe now. He clearly wasn't jet black, but he was brown. And brown is different from dark. It indicates dark skin, but not the jet black that the Arab, Ariba Arabs were. So where do we get this description of Prophet Muhammad as white? And why has it been privileged? I won't talk about all of that. Where do we get the description of Prophet Muhammad as white? Post-Quranic Islam, in its first 100 years, was black. I call attention to Brother Wayne Chandler's article, Ebony and Bronze Race and Ethnicity in Early Arabia and Islamic World, in Van Serling's book, After the Presence in Early Asia. I say this now, and I must make it clear. I greatly respect Brother Wayne Chandler. I respect his scholarship. Wayne Chandler is not a ghetto scholar. He is a good scholar. But this particular article on Islam further proves the danger of treading in those fields, those waters, of writing Islamic history without being able to access the necessary sources to responsibly do so. Brother Wayne Chandler argues and tries to make the case that the Umayyad dynasty, the first dynasty, post-Quranic dynasty of Islam, went from around 670 to 750. Was a white dynasty. It was white Islam, but the dynasty that overthrew it in 750, the Abbasid dynasty, which was itself destroyed in 1258, was a black dynasty. And he makes this claim because the Umayyads wore white garb, and the Abbasids waved a black flag. That is very wrong. And I'll make the point because it's critical to get that right. It is very critical to get that right, to understand the relation of Islam to black people, which is a key point of the platform of the Afrocentrics. The fact of the matter is, the Umayyad period the Umayyad dynasty was a black dynasty. The Quraysh, it was a Qurayshi dynasty. And black was beautiful. I say that, I'm not being sloganistic. For example, two particular Muslims from the Banu Sulaim, a jet black tribe, Umar had to exit second caliph had to exile them from their homeland, from their home cities, because their beauty caused so much ruckus in the city. So they had to be exiled to keep things calm. The famous story of Aisha, who was charged with some infidelity. It is said that, you know, there's a caravan, and the caravan was leaving, and Aisha noticed she dropped the necklace, and she went back to get the necklace, but when she came back, the caravan was gone. So there was a young man. All the chronicles stressed the fact that it was this young, handsome man who was there. He had a horse. He gave her a ride back. And rumors spread that some infidelity took place. The Quran vindicates Aisha. But the important thing is that all of these early chronicles stress how handsome this young man was. Well, that young man was from the Banu Sulaim tribe, the jet black tribe. He was part of this jet black, beautiful Arabism. Because see, in Umayyad times, black was beautiful. Nobility was blackness. But that would change with the Abbasid period, because the Abbasids were ushered in under the Persians. These weren't, while the Umayyad period was an Arab dynasty, the Abbasid dynasty was largely a Persian dynasty. And Persians are not Arabs. Persians are Aryans, and very hateful of blacks. And so the early description of Prophet Muhammad as being brown-skinned in the Abbasid period was changed to he was white. Because white nobility now is associated with whiteness. Why is this important? Because the issue of slavery in Islam is important. Because slavery was an Abbasid, African slavery was an Abbasid phenomenon. The Persian and the racism, you can march out of Bernard Lewis collected a lot of literature attributed to Prophet Muhammad and others, hateful of blackness. All of it is Abbasid. All of it reflecting the Aryan ethos of the Persians at the root of the Abbasid revolution. And so we unable to critically engage the sources. See, that's why this era, I have to clear it up. I respect Wayne Chandler, but that's an era that must be cleared up. The Abbasid period was the white dynasty. And it was during this period where the racism, the characteristic Muslim racism, crept into Islam and overtook it. And it was this period where Islam became anti-black. Islam will become anti-black. At least certain articulations of Islam will become anti-black. But that was centuries later. Now, I wanted to talk about the conquest of Egypt, Islam's relationship to Africa, but it's late. I say that for maybe a conference that one of you great organizers, community organizers will put together. Yes, sir. What's the long and short of this? Yes, sir. A couple of things. Not just with Islam, but in general, this college industry of ghetto scholarship, scholarship where we are too quick to write and not tireless enough to do the requisite research before we write. You gotta let that go. Because we will be embarrassed by it. The creative scholarship that's based more in creative imagination the critical engagement of source material, we got to stop that. And is what I presented faith-based, twisted research? You be the judge. But I think a public discussion is in order.
Yes, sir.
Cast down our rods, all of us. And see what's what. This feigning scholarship for the purpose of seeming big, hustling knowledge. We gotta stop. Making our intellectual space the new corner that ill serves the intellectual and spiritual health of our people. It's sticking pins in the mind of our people. And if you, like me and many of us, are really committed to the uplift of our people, then we need to make sure that what we feed our people is as close to truth that we can possibly get it. And that means we are less imaginative with what we feed our people. Just because, the more exotic you sound, the more followers you get. That's why it's a hustle. So we spin the most exotic madness because we know we gullible Negroes today.
Go ahead.
We like the exotic, don't care where you get it from. That's why we don't ask, because subconsciously we know we're not going to get an answer we like. So we don't even ask. We like the exotic and we spin the exotic. Right, Mr. Muhammad. I will open it up. Well, the thesis, final point. Islam is a black African religion.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to end on this note. Prophet Muhammad, I promise you, this is the last one I will have to question. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. There's a hadith. He's talking with Abu Bakr. And he says to Abu Bakr, I had a dream last night. I saw black sheep. And I saw white sheep. And the white sheep outnumbered tremendously the black sheep. Prophet Muhammad asked Abu Bakr, what does that mean? Abu Bakr said, the black sheep represent the Arabs who were first called to Islam. The white sheep are the Hajjam, the foreigners, who came to Islam later, but they so outnumber the black original Arabs that people have forgotten that Islam first came to those black Arabs. That is exactly the situation today. Now, in a brief time before we get kicked out, I will bring Brother Michael on. If there is time for question and answers, I would love to entertain them. So, brother, where are we at? Well, you come and you tell us where we're at. Go with it.
After all those hours of intense dialogue, because as he was speaking, you were listening, you can do better than that. Give up, I'm going to say this, because this is not an easy subject to defend, and certainly not an easy one to teach when you are teaching it in the method that our brother is teaching. So if you occasionally found yourself going like this, it's okay. You have to read more or get more rest. We have to expand our vocabulary and strive to understand more of what it is that we study from a historical context, and remove from our study and our education the religiosity, the emotionalism. I'm not saying that it doesn't have relevance, but we should strive to remove that from our understanding completely of what our brother presented to us today. Now, how many of you would love to ask our brother some questions? Okay, I saw some hands go up. So I can't deny you the opportunity to have your questions answered, since you sat so patiently and listened to our brother speak. So let's bring our brother back up, Brother True Islam. And what we'll do is we'll allow our brother to acknowledge you by a show of hands. And as he answers your questions, let's be brief when we ask our questions so that we can get a brief answer. Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. And just be brief with your questions so our brother can give you a brief response and move on to the next person anxiously awaiting. And if you can, please speak up loud enough so that we can capture your voice on the microphone for our audience that will be viewing via internet. All right? Brothers and sisters, to Islam.
Yes, sir. Peace, blood. Peace. The presentation was immaculate, and it was fantastic. My question is philosophical in nature, but I wanted to just preface it by saying this. My foundation is the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. As I began to matriculate, I came into the Nile Valley craft of Alim Rock, particularly in Brooklyn, New York. And as I was developing, going through initiations, I was constantly interjecting the Honorable Elijah Muhammad with the understanding, because I agree with the analogy that you made of the lessons of Master Farrar Muhammad being the current living example of what I would call, not in I would call metaphysical, but not in the term that is so often said today, that I believe that Brother Phil represents and a couple of others. My question to you is, do you see a marriage between the great scholarly type of work that you obviously presented tonight and a phenomenological understanding of symbolism that is being miscalled metaphysical science? Because the analogy that you closed with, where Prophet Muhammad was talking to Abu Bakr, is what I understand to be it's divination from an oracle standpoint. I had a vision that has phenomenological meaning, and you looked into this vision and you were able to bring it into reality. That science is a true African science that says true knowledge is done through initiation of united minds, where we all come together as Allah, and that is the true scholarship. That scholarship is greater than academic scholarship in terms of the fact that you can't study yourself more than you can be yourself. which being yourself is being the original man and is being God. So I want to know, do you see a marriage? Because oftentimes I see brothers like yourself and other brothers, like some of the brothers you mentioned, draw a line, and I see the bridge. But sometimes I see that brothers don't necessarily see the bridge. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I absolutely agree that the empirical is not the highest demonstration of truth. That the greatest truths can't even be empirically demonstrated. Yes, sir. I also agree that some of those higher truths can be extracted from an understanding of the symbolism, the phenomenology behind the symbolism of ancient Kemet, Sumer, and India. And in fact, I made this point in Toronto. I'm absolutely convinced that you can't understand ancient Kemet. Brother Phil refers to himself, Brother Bobby and others, as the code breakers. You can't break the code of ancient Kemet, the symbolic code of ancient Kemet, without putting Kemet in conversation with the Sanskrit of Indus Valley in the cuneiform of Sumer. This is a phenomenology that in order to break the code, you have to be conversant with all three traditions. So if all we know is we think we know the meta-netta of ancient Kemet, if we can't put the symbolism of ancient Kemet in conversation with the cuneiform symbolism or the Sanskrit symbolism of Egypt, we have not broken the code. I do see that the higher truths will be extracted from the symbolism. But I also know that one cannot do 12th grade math without doing 9th grade math. See, Brother Phil said this. He said about a famous man, he said, I know some of you would decry that what I'm saying isn't in accord with historical facts. He said, that's all right. We're doing metaphysics. We are beyond historical facts. See, that's the problem. That's ghetto scholarship.
Yes, sir.
The higher truth must be in accord with the facts on the ground.
That's right. That's right.
And before we can presume to have a higher truth, we must make sure we have the relevant historical facts on the ground. So, yes, the empirical is limited. The empirical is the finger pointing to the moon. It gives us direction, but the finger won't take us to the moon. There is a higher truth, but we got to start on the ground, and we haven't got the ground game right. We want to do this metaphysics without anchoring our metaphysics in the empirical. And so, yeah, that is where we need to go, but we got to clean the basement up first. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, sir.
That's right, brother.
Yes, sir.
I'm Jahar Shakur from the Extended Black Family Movement out of Patterson, New Jersey. I would love to work on you giving a presentation in Northern New Jersey. Definitely in the near future.
Let's do it.
My question I gotta ask is, you know, is for everything surrounded by chematology and everything. You said that Sumeria was more important, I think.
No.
I'm not exact quote, but
Well, no. I said Kemet was not more important than Sumer. I didn't say Sumer was more important than Kemet. My whole point is you can't extract the greatest maximum value from your study of Kemet unless you put it in conversation with Sumer or India. Because there is a phenomenological language.
right.
There's symbolic language because Sumer, Kemet, and India are actually, Indus Valley are actually children of a central civilization. I didn't get to that today. But as children, as siblings, they speak the same language in different dialect.
Right.
But in order to understand Kemet, you have to understand the cuneiform Sumer and the Sanskrit and pre-Sanskrit of India. One is not more important than the other. That was my point. They are all critical pieces of the puzzle. My argument is that Kemet is a critical piece of the puzzle of truth. It is not the truth.
Well, that's clear. I can see that.
Yes, sir.
You have a question, brother?
Yeah, you said that you have to know German, Arabic, to know Islam.
Not to know.
Not to know, but
To write
to write
a history.
But why German though?
Good question. Very good question.
Good question.
The short answer is the Germans just had way too much time on their hands. So most religious studies scholarship, the hard, critical stuff, is written by Germans in German. The most important critical scholarship is written by the Germans. Some by the French, much less by the British or the English. It is not necessary to know Arabic or German to know something about Islam. The English language literature is sufficient to introduce people to Islam. It is not sufficient to qualify one to write a critical history of Islam, because the sources necessary to write that history are still in Arabic. And the critical scholarship on those sources, most of it is still in German. It's in German. So, yeah, I can't, they just had too much time on their hands. And so they did all the hard work that, the philological work that other folks didn't want to do. That tedious stuff, that tedious scholarship. See, we like the easy scholarship. But that easy scholarship is a ghetto scholarship. No, real scholarship is very hard, it's very tedious.
All right. Fact finding.
Yes, sir.
I had a question. There was something I was thinking. The last year, so maybe a little bit more before Wallace or Wesley Muhammad returned to the essence, most every time that he spoke, at least in a forum, he spoke heavily on Islam being the natural religion of the black man.
Yes.
It wasn't something that he necessarily taught during his tenure, but he heavily, without going into much detail, he would consistently reiterate before he went out. And I was just curious what your thoughts were on that in regards to, he was brought up by his father. And regardless of what the contention is on either side of that, I look at that simply as he was the son of his father, like a spoiled child. He's not going to be like the child that come from the ghetto that don't know nothing. So he had time to tinker. But him using that language, and he was heavily politically involved with the Saudi royal families, do you think that, I know he had access, that he had a lot of the knowledge about the black man in Islam as you spoke on today, but maybe held that for political reasons because of either financial backing or support that he got from foreign sources? Because we know for a fact, because Minister Farrakhan publicly made the statement, that he was offered the dough to keep his mouth shut. So I was just curious what your thoughts would be on that.
I have no thoughts whatsoever because I have no empirical data upon which to base it. It was completely speculation, creative, and imaginative. And I don't want to dishonor the dead like that. I have no idea. If I had something to offer, I would. I have nothing. I cannot. I don't know what brother knew. Brother didn't know. I don't know if he did know things he did not teach, the reasons and motivations. I have no clue. I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
You're well.
Welcome, Brother Joe.
Thank you, brother. Thank
Thank
you. I
you.
appreciate all that you do for us.
Thank you, Brother Joe.
My question was about the brothers that you have had debates with. Do you ever get any feedback from them? Do they tend to come back with anything, convert?
They write angry letters
Oh, yeah?
and emails about posting. Now, when this DVD circulation may get some more, I don't know in what venue, what medium it would take, but yeah. Yes, sir.
Please, Brother True. Brother, understand this question. Made me think of the question I had when you were speaking. I have a tape at home. I think it was in 1994, Savior's Day, when Minister Farrakhan was talking about the white population and what they do. I forgot the particular title. But I do remember him saying that, you know, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was a white man. And I think he said something I'm paraphrasing. He said, but he was the noblest of white men.
Right.
And what does that mean? That, you know, if you become Islam, that you can be right. He went to that. And then when you were talking in your speech, you talked about how some saw him as a white man, but I think the more correct characterization of him was around his complexion. Now, you know, Minister Farrakhan being, you know, our guide, him to say that, and then you kind of,
Right.
Can you speak to that?
Yes. The ethnicity and, in particular, the phenotype of Prophet Muhammad, the same conflict that we discovered in the Arabic tradition exists in the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teaching. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said Prophet Muhammad was a white man. I found one reference to that. However, about 5 times he says he's a member of the black nation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, at an earlier period, I published on this, and my position at that time was that both could be true, because one, white and Caucasian are not the same. Caucasian speaks of genotype. White speaks of phenotype. And genotype and phenotype are not the same. That is to say, there's black people that are white, they look white. They're white in their phenotype. You know, so-called passing Negroes. Non-Caucasian people who are phenotypically white, but genetically black or other. So it's possible that Prophet Muhammad was a member of the black nation genetically, but phenotypically white. I must confess that today that explanation doesn't quite work for me, because the earliest evidence in the genealogy of Prophet Muhammad clearly indicates his membership in the black nation. And the Arabic sources describing him as white are later Abbasid, and thus not likely an actual description of how he looked. So it doesn't appear to me that he was phenotypically white. But I think I found the answer in Ibn Kathir's commentary. The hadiths I displayed, found in the collection of Tirmidhi, one of the 6 canonical collections. He was a student of Al-Bukhari. Well, those hadiths were commented on by a classical, one of the most important classical commentators of the Quran, Ibn Kathir. And Ibn Kathir says that in trying to harmonize the two, that in Arabic we say white to mean luminous, not white chromatically. And so Ibn Kathir said there is no contradiction between the description of him being white skinned and him being brown skinned, because he was brown skinned, but he was luminous. He was noble. And white euphemistically in Arabic means noble. Does this have relevance to the two statements by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad? It may. I don't know. I do know this. I'm going to interrogate the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad the way I interrogate every other teacher. I'm not going to be dogmatic about the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad any more than I am about anybody else's teaching. We don't need to be. We don't need to be. And it ill serves us to do. So, what is the answer? The long and short of it is, I don't know. There are possible ways to harmonize the statements. Which one is the right? I don't know. But I know theoretically it's possible. It could very well be the case that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, when he said he was a white man, he was using the euphemism. Or it could have been the case that that statement was earlier, because there seems to be an isolated statement that isn't made again, and all of his discussion is he's black. He's in the black nation, maybe. He changed his position. Maybe he learned something that caused him to discontinue that description and emphasize that he was of the black nation. Remember, Master Muhammad studied for 42 years. It's after the 42nd year that he was able to begin his mission. I imagine that had he started his mission in the 3rd year, he didn't know as much. See, the lessons at a certain point in 1934, some of them are almost nearly correct. So what I'm suggesting is, see, God is a man, and the messages of God are men. And we don't have to assume that that means there can be no growth in the understanding of the messengers of God. And if we see growth, that means they're not the messengers of God. We should not do what the pious do, is try to make a circle out of a horseshoe, we say. You know, if certain things don't seem to fit, don't let it be and keep studying. Don't try to force things together. That's when we spin mythic history. We don't do that. We should not do that. And I won't do it even for the teachers, Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I've interrogated this teaching academically for 20 years now. I know it can stand up. And so, though I can't say what the answer is to that seeming conflict. I know I am not going to do for the teacher, Honorable Elijah Muhammad, what I am admonishing others not to do, is close my eyes to facts, because I want to maintain an understanding of what I think the messenger taught or meant. I'm not going to do that. The empirical data is what it is. How the Honorable Elijah Muhammad made 2 statements, how they come together, how they relate to the empirical data. There's many ways where that can be configured. None of which means the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was wrong, or the empirical data needs to be dispensed with. It could very well be that he meant white in the same way Ibn Kathir says Arabs meant white, meaning luminous. But when I say that, I qualify. Those passages in Bukhari, written by those Persians, even though in Arabic, Ibn Kathir said in Arabic, when Arabs say white, they mean luminous. But these were Persians speaking in Arabic. And when they said white, they clarified in another hadith, they meant white. Because for them, nobility was whiteness and blackness was an ethnic crime. So there it is. If I don't know, I would say I don't know. I'm not a hustler. Yes, sir. Like salam, sir. Good to see you.
Yes, sir. Good to see you too, beloved. Question, I know it could become larger, but the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught that the white race were a grafted race.
Yes, sir.
Devils.
Yes, sir.
In your research in ancient Kemet or Sumerian, the Indian civilizations, or even in the Quran, have you been able to find that as a teaching that was prevalent amongst black people in the past?
Absolutely, among the commissions, and to a less explicit extent among the Sumerians. But the commissions are very clear. Yes. The whites to the Egyptians were Tamahu, created white people, and they were Sethians. And Seth, at a certain period, you know, Seth didn't start out as the devil. He was a brother of Osiris, but he became the personification of evil, and that designation was applied to the Tamahu. So these are created white devils, according to the Commissions. So yes, sir.
Let's wrap it up with one last question so we can. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Beloved, you had mentioned that earlier that you had intended to touch on Islam and how it relates to ancient Kemet. We pressed for time, but I have my question is this: you said that ancient Kemet, ancient Sumeria, and the ancient Indian civilization were children's civilization of the center civilization.
Yes,
now, that center civilization
was it Black Arabia?
Well, that's Black Arabia.
Is it Black Arabia?
Islam.
Islam.
Thank you.
Well, in Black and well, different question.
Yes, sir. Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Islam.
And in my book, Black Arabia, an African Origin of Civilization, which will be out, I go into that discussion on, see, Honorable Elijah Muhammad placed the root of civilization in Mecca and in Egypt. And I would demonstrate that, as I stated, Kemet, Sumeria, and Indus civilization are children civilizations of a center civilization, Kushite empire, centered on the Arabian Peninsula. Yes, that is my next academic example.
Thank you. Thank you.